longer.
Okay. What about alliances made with Israel and the Zionist state over there, and the Zionist alliances that have been made here in the United States, including billions of dollars of funding that have gone out into Israel? And I'm going to join this to it as well, the liberation of Gaza.
Okay. I've gotten involved in that problem between the Palestinians and Israel to the extent that I actually was able to get a 2-week peace in place just because I didn't like the idea. I went to war, and I don't think it's a good deal. In terms of Zionism, I would go on the online and punch in Zionist communist, and you'll find that the same organization that Hitler dealt with in getting rid of the Jews, but I mean sending them out of his country, is still in place and very active. Now, as far as any influence upon what goes on in this country, any organization, group, or individual who decides that they do want to take action that's adverse to our founding documents, if they don't have a home country, they need to pick one. If that country will not accept them, then they get life. Just that simple.
Okay. Because you obviously know that anything that goes against our present stance, official or unofficial, with Israel is going to piss off millions of evangelical Christians. I'm just pointing that out based on my research and based on what I know about that entire movement. I've done a lot of research into Zionism over the years.
Okay. There's a problem with religiosity and the splits and the animosities between different kinds, okay? If somebody will take the time and the trouble to go back into time as far as you can get, you're going to end up at the cuneiform tablets by the ancient Sumerians. Mm-hmm. This is approximately 8000 BC. In that documentation, you will find that they refer to what they call ancient documents. Now, the ancient documentation generally spans millions of years. That's the general consensus of the meaning of it. And it was at one point a singular belief system. So the basis of this is how this works very simply is that each person who does bother to go to church picks the one that they're most comfortable with. How many different kinds of Christian churches are there? Or Catholic churches or Methodist churches or et cetera. What I'm saying is that each individual believes in a personal way as far as God goes. Whether you have documentation or not is not the point. The point is that these things will be clarified. Now, not through the actions of this of our efforts. This is outside of our efforts. This is another portion of things that are supposedly coming. The difference being that at the very least, a Muslim on his prayer mat can worship right next to a Christian paying homage to the Christ on the cross without animosity.
Yeah.
I want everybody to think about that, because in each one of the belief systems, you'll find that those heathens, as it's stated in one book, infidels, as it's stated in another, if they cannot be converted, are to be eliminated. Now, where'd they come up with that? The basis is that if you create strife, you also create profit. That's the idea. This is where white and black have a problem. This is where Latino and other people have problems. There are simple, very simple, commonsensical answers to 99% of all the BS that goes on. When somebody's cut, they generally bleed the same color, irrespective as to what color their skin might be. It makes a little difference. It comes out red, period. So you are a part of the human race. Now, our planet ain't the biggest thing going in the galaxy. It's not actually considered very large at all. With the population we've got, it might be a good idea not to worry so much about cultural difference and this one's better than that, or this is better for me, or any of that, but worry about how to simply apply the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, I've had dealings. I grew up in the civil rights movement. Dr. Martin Luther King had barbecues in my backyard. I used to get painted black on the way home from school because I was a white boy. You name it. In varying ways, I've had a lot of the experiences that other people weren't privy to. The idea that I could, and people knew me and liked me, several of them, when I was coming up in grade school, and they couldn't understand how a white guy could like a black guy. Well, we were friends. We had grown up. His house right on the other side of the tracks from me, and yeah, it was a railroad track, and what did he do about being on the other side of the tracks? We became friends, and the way we became friends was my grandfather had an orchard, and I told the man to go ahead and get him some fruit. He said, thanks. He went and picked some pears and some apples, and when he was climbing down the tree with this bag full of fruit, Grandpa comes out and says, what is he doing in my orchard? I said, I told him he could. What did you do that for? His family would like to have some fresh fruit, and they can't afford it. My grandpa looked rather consternated that I had invited a black person onto his property, for one thing, because he was prejudiced. And then the other part was that I might have a serious problem liking black people. But so that he didn't create immediate problems, my friend, by this time, of course, was standing on the ground, standing there wondering if he ought to hand me the bag or run or what. I said, go ahead, man, don't worry about it. It's took care of. And so he started to leave, and my grandfather said, I need to talk to you. And we had a long talk about some of these things. So, you know, you name it. I mean, this is a very personal basis.
Yes.
And it goes on from there. And if people take the time and trouble to do their own homework, 99% of the things that they have questions about can be found. Now, my suggestion is that they look to published takes on ideas, and then look for documentation that deals specifically with that. This will weed out a lot of the places that you don't want to go. It'll cut down your time considerably. So there's that.
Okay. I wanted to ask you too, Drake, and you may have addressed this in previous shows. I think I've heard most of your interviews, but not all of them. There are allegedly artificial intelligence satellite systems in low orbit over our country and theoretically over the planet as well as underground bases, much like we see out in the Southwest. These bases have been documented for many years as being hives for what I guess we would call negative off-planet entities. Your current military contacts, being high up enough, are aware of these? Are these being addressed as well as part of the proactive ramp-up to the action?
First of all, the action has to be able not to be interfered with, so yes. Now, the other part of that is that these anti-human entities also are not nice to the angels that are supposed to be helping us. So they were at odds to begin with. I heard about 3-4 weeks ago that there was a little bit of a dogfight, and we don't have to worry about the bad guys in terms of aliens any longer. The ones that survived headed to unknown places at very high rates of speed. As far as underground bases, those are being taken out. Now, at first, there was a couple of accidents. One was in Denver and one was in Virginia. There were explosions involved in that, and the idea, as I understand it, is not to be destructive and not to take life or injure people. So They have another aspect, supposedly, and I've heard several reports from several people, and these are only reports. I don't have a video. I wish I did. I would love to have something that had the look on their faces when these things supposedly happen. Apparently, they can create, these are the angels, a vortex.
Yes.
And they can suck everything out of a place, furniture, people, whatever. And I understood there was a whole lot of cussing going on, and that the description was, and this is without the swear words, that these tree-hugging hippies from space needed to quit interfering and abide by their prime directive of non-interference. What's the matter with you? And off he goes. And that was the report I got. Comical, yeah. Believable, take a guess. If somebody would like to believe that this is possible, fine. If not, and you got the capability to travel, I suggest you go to some of these underground bases. Because what you're going to find is that the door's standing open and there ain't nothing inside. Whoops. And as you said, the Southwest is loaded with them. People can find them fairly easily if they go down there. So, if somebody can travel, like I say, there's quite a bunch of things that not only are going on but have already taken place. Go see for yourself. There ain't nothing wrong with it. You won't find any guards. And like I said, the door is going to be open. You can look around if you want. I don't know if anybody's ever seen blast doors, kind of like a big bank vault door, only it's made out of special reflective metals. So, I have been privy to know of a lot of this simply because of my dealings with the nuclear defense of this country. That offered me high security clearances and a bunch of other things. I had sensitive information, and they weren't sure if I was going to let that out or not, and I never said a word. So they felt these people in these sensitive positions or high levels felt they could trust me. And that's the only excuse I've got for this, other than the fact that they asked me to make broadcasts.
Okay. One of the things that I'd like you to refine a little bit in your narrative is the perception that you've basically told people to sit back and watch TV, that they don't have to do anything. Now, and I understand that's a misperception, but maybe for the record here you can refine that communication a little bit. Okay.
Being able to sit, we've got enough problems with Joe Sixpack on the couch, or however you want to look at this. It could be Joe the it don't matter. The problem is this, and it's called awareness. If people don't understand that there is a problem in terms of the government coming out with regulations day after day telling you cannot grow your own food, and I'm serious about this, that you cannot have a garden, that you cannot pick the food that you eat, even though you might want to at the grocery, telling you that if you have a weed that they consider noxious and they don't like it, they can take your property and or fine you exorbitant amounts and things of this nature. If they don't think that's a problem, then go back to sleep. However, for all of those who think that might be a problem, or that the government has become too invasive in your life, I would suggest that you start localizing. And the way you do that is you ask around to people that you know. Now, there's a problem with that. How many people know their neighbors? If you don't, you're slacking. Get off your whatever and go talk to the neighbors. Hey, I live next door. How's it going? And go from there. See where it leads. Eventually, you'll get around to the point of several things. Growing your garden, as an example. Whether somebody likes it or not, okay. If a federal agent comes up and says, I'm going to plow up your garden, you're not allowed to do that, and it's just you, that's sort of a even Steven kind of thing. But when a neighbor, or maybe two or three, show up with their shotguns and say, we don't think so, that changes things. Now, I'll give an example of this. Ruidoso, New Mexico, had a standoff with the federal government. The sheriff asked for support. The local militia showed up with 130-some people, and the 15 feds decided it was time to go eat lunch somewhere. They have not been back, and none of the things that they said were going to transpire happened. So there's a lot of us and a few of them.